Hey everyone, welcome. And we are continuing our theme of talking to our young adults, parenting young adults. I say that parenting very loosely, right? Because our role is changing, but we're still parents. And so we're navigating the waters of really trying to come alongside our young adults. And maybe that's your own child, or maybe that's a niece or nephew or someone close to you. And so we are continuing this conversation, and we brought on today Catherine Hickem, who is a licensed clinical social worker. She's a psychotherapist and the founder of Parenting Adult Children Today. And this is an organization that is much needed, Catherine. We are so glad you are doing this. And the goal of this organization is to equip parents with the tools needed to love their young adult children well, to love or their adult children well. They may not be young adults anymore. And this is really filling a need. So, Catherine, welcome. We're so glad you're here to just add to this conversation.
Well, thank you so much. I just appreciate the fact that you understand the impact that we still can have, but
Mhm.
it's just so very different than how we started. So,
So,
Mhm.
let's just jump in by really talking about how parenting young adults or adults is different than parenting teenagers. Can you speak to that?
oh yeah. One of the challenges is that we have raised them, right? So they've been with us for 18 years and they started with us where us being able to have a free flow of opinion. We were responsible for accountability. We were responsible for all decision making. And it just becomes a part of who we are. It's we do it without even thinking. It's just because we love them and we care about them, we just do it. But
Mhm.
when they reach that young adulthood place, our job drastically changes. And what most of us don't understand as parents of adult children is that we have to be ready for that 180 change, because now it's no longer about us making decisions. It's about us empowering them and blessing them as they seek to, quote, learn how to make decisions. And so it's a huge shift for us. And it's hard because most of the time fear drives us. It's like we don't want them to get hurt. We don't want them to make mistakes. We don't want them to have pain. And yet, so we think if we keep parenting the way we did, we're going to prevent it. And the truth is, we're not going to prevent it. We're actually going to push them further into probably making some bad choices. So we
Mhm.
have to get real that our parenting style has to really take on some drastic differences if we want to be successful in maintaining a really healthy, communicative, and supportive relationship.
Yeah, the word control is coming to mind as you're talking.
Yes,
Like we've had control over everything when they're little, where they sleep, when
right.
they sleep, what they eat, when they eat. And then over the course of years, they have control over their choices. And that can start to instill panic, I think, in
Oh,
parents of, oh no, I no longer have control over this. And maybe I never really actually did. It was a false sense of control. But now I know I don't. And now I
right.
know they can make decisions that may, in my mind, be their ruin forever. And it really is a release of control, which for women of faith, there it's a spiritual journey as
Right.
well, as we're letting
Hmm.
go and trusting God to protect them and pave the way. And then also trusting that all of the things that we have instilled in them are there and that they
Hmm.
have access to that if they choose to use it.
Yeah, and I will tell you, I've been at this a long time. My son is 40 and my daughter is 39. And every morning I still start the morning off with truth telling. And that's being really honest with God and saying, here's my fear and
Mhm.
here's my concern. And I will be very specific about any of the things that concern me about them, because I need to stay really honest with him so I can turn my fear over to him and he can in turn hand me his peace, because I don't have control. I have to trust him with them because it's no longer mine to have any control over. And that is probably the biggest act of faith I do every day, is trust him with them because they're my heart. And
Mhm.
it's hard. It's not an easy thing. And I've been doing it a long time and it still has its challenges. So I'm grateful that I have a faith that I can turn them over to. That gives me comfort because there's a part of me that knows he really does love them more. And that's hard for me to get my hands around, but it's a truth that I hold on to. And it has been incredibly helpful in those moments where I felt so helpless.
And it's a good reminder that we never stop having to practice that. It's a daily discipline of turning them over and turning over our fears, that
Yeah.
we have a choice every day what we're going to do with those, and to go to the
Yes.
right places, or the most helpful, the most helpful
Right.
places. So, what does it mean to take responsibility for how we show up in our relationships with our adult children, regardless of how other people are acting?
Here's what's true. Parenting isn't about how our children turn out. Parenting is about how I show up. And how I show up is the
Mhm.
only thing I really have control over. So
Mhm.
what's my attitude? Am I respectful? Can
Mhm.
I take them seriously? Can I create the space to let them figure things out on their own? That is how we show up. And here's the danger: when we don't show up respectfully and we don't give them the space to figure it out, we're basically saying some key things. And one of them is, I don't trust the job I did raising them.
Mhm.
And secondly, I don't have any confidence in you that you'll figure it out. So we backhandedly insult them and undermine the confidence that they're already struggling to build and develop on their own. And we're just feeding the doubt and feeding the fear when we're constantly having opinions, inserting our control, and attempting to, quote, tell them what to do. It hurts them, it
Mhm.
doesn't help them. It doesn't really protect them the way we think it's going to protect them.
Because our intentions are good in
Absolutely.
that we think we're saying it out of their benefit. So my
Yeah.
oldest daughter is 23 and just graduated from college. So I am for the very first time having her experience adult decisions that I am not paying for. They are essentially like, you're kind of on your own now. And
Right.
it is this very strange feeling of, do I trust her? Do I trust the world to teach her if she's not taking my own lessons? That's where the fear comes in, because the
Mhm.
world can be a harsh teacher. And I've also very quickly learned, when I overstep a boundary because I am speaking out of my fear and I'm afraid she isn't remembering something I've already told her, I can just tell by the look on her face, like, oh, dang, that was not a good move. And then
Mhm.
I have to quickly apologize and say, I'm sorry, I'm doing this for the first time. I shouldn't have said that. Or I trust you. Because I can see her confidence go down as
Right.
my pushing goes up.
Right. But Alex, how great of you to own it and to take responsibility and to say, I'm sorry. It's not easy for a lot of people to say they're sorry to their kids, and they don't. And so it just builds and builds and builds. And your ability to say, hey, you know what? This is the first time I've ever done this before, and I'm struggling. So can you forgive me on that?
Mhm.
I find it very rare for an adult child not to want to forgive their parents when
Mm.
they see they're trying. Their heart is to be in good connection with a parent, and they don't want to be disconnected, but they also know that they can't rely on mom or dad telling them what to do their whole lives either. So good for you that you have the courage to be the right person with her when you mess up.
Yeah.
It's
And
okay
it's
to mess
not
up.
always immediate.
Well,
Like
that's okay.
sometimes an hour goes by. I don't want people to think like I'm the immediate apologizer all the time, but I do, as soon as I get that sense of feeling like I should apologize, I want to be a person who does,
Right.
especially with my adult children, because I realize that we're forging the path for the future right now.
Right.
This is a pivotal time. I think anytime dynamics change is an opportunity for
Yep.
change in lots of ways, because this is a time of change for her and therefore for us as her parents. I want to set maybe new, healthier rhythms than we've had in the past. And I'm hoping that she will meet me there, because for sure I can look back and say, I wish I had handled some things differently when she was in high school or
Mhm.
younger. But now is an opportunity. Today is an opportunity to pave a new way.
Mhm. And you bring up a really good point that I don't think it's ever too late for us to be able to approach them and say, I've been giving some thought to a time in our relationship that I didn't handle some things well. And I just need to circle back on you just to let you know. I know now that I didn't. And was there any repercussion to you on that? Or is there anything you need to say to me about that? Because I don't ever want there to be anything between us that would stand in the way of you really being honest with me. Because I want you to know I'm going to be here to the last breath of my body. And I don't ever want any of our past challenges or difficulties to ever cause you to question that. Because here's what I'm telling you that I'm seeing. And it's kind of scary. Adult children are not going to their parents when their lives are getting hard. They're telling other people, but they're not coming home to tell them. That's very disturbing to me because no one's really going to ever love you and care about the advice they give you as much as a parent would. At least that's my heart and my hope that that would be what people would find out. But because our children have grown up in our homes where they may have seen us be judgmental or critical of other people's children making bad decisions, and then they have made the same decision and they know we've had very strong feelings about it, they will shut down and not tell us they made those same mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want that to happen in my home. I grew up, my dad was a minister, and I saw a lot of things that Christians were not supposed to do that did, and the implications of all that. And I saw it in other ministers' homes and a lot of broken families because the children didn't feel safe to come home to say what had happened. So they made some decisions that they would end up regretting for the rest of their lives. And then I was married to a minister for 35 years and had a front row seat all over again to watching believers live their convictions so strongly that their children lived and created a double life because they didn't want to disappoint. They didn't want to deal with the difficulties. They didn't want to deal with the challenges of their choices. So they just created a double life. And so when they were with their parents, they would act one way. And then when they were off on their own, they'd act another. That's not healthy. That's not the heart of God. And it's sure not how He wants us to live a life reflecting Him if our children don't see His unconditional love coming from the very people who raised them. So I think this is where, as parents who are believers, we have a lot of work to do because our children can often may not have had context for why we may have had a strong reaction or something. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm not blaming them. I'm just saying a lot goes on in our household. And we don't ever know what the lessons they're learning that they're going to take with them that we have no idea that they made some assumptions about that are impacting their relationship with us now. I'm always looking to see, do I need to clean anything up? Is there any question I need to be asking or exploring that could be interfering in my current relationship that actually is rooted in some stuff in the past? So I think it's important we, as people of grace and love and forgiveness, seek it, give it, and show to them what unconditional love looks like.
Yeah, it takes a lot of humility and self-awareness and
Yes.
a lot of both, like heaps of both of those. But I also
Yeah.
want to do some real talk around this about what you were just saying, because I think it's two different things. It's having self-awareness and humility and being able to say, I don't like how I did that. So there's that aspect.
Mm-hmm.
And there's maybe another aspect where maybe they have a different value system as an adult than you do. And yet they're
Right.
coming into your home and you're trying to uphold your values, but they don't have the same ones. And so that can
Mm-hmm.
seem judgmental, but you're not trying to be judgmental. You're just trying to uphold your values.
Right.
So, I mean, this is just real talk. Like, how do you deal with that?
That's a great question, Krista. And I think you have a really honest conversation. As soon as you know that that value has changed, you sit down and you have a real honest adult to adult conversation. And you say, look, I just want you to know I respect your right to have made a shift in your value system that's different than how you were raised. I don't fully understand it, but I just want you to know I respect your right to be able to do that. What I do need you to understand is that when you're in our home, we're going to continue to live the values that we raised you with. And that's not up for negotiation with us. And you're always welcome here. We just need you to know that, let's just say, for instance, it's not okay that you're going to shack up with your boyfriend in your bedroom. That's not something that's okay in our home. And so I'm sure this doesn't come as a surprise to you. And this doesn't mean I don't love you. It just means it would be so disruptive to our home to do something that's contrary to what our belief system is for what's right and wrong for us. That's not about you. That's about us. So
Mm.
I just wanted to say it out of respect for you, because I love you and I want to honor your choices. I just need you to be, when you're in our home, I need you to honor ours. And I
Mm.
think it all comes down to our attitude, our tone of voice, our sense of gentleness and kindness. And I think saying hard things in a really kind and loving way, what's the scripture that says, speak the truth in love? They know when we're being loving, and they know when we have an agenda and we're mad as heck. And I think they know us better than we know ourselves sometimes. And we just
Mm.
have to be really clean and really clear. Are we ready to have that conversation? Because if we're
Mhm.
not ready to have that conversation, probably the fruit of the Spirit's not going to be manifested in that conversation.
Mm.
And if the fruit cannot be manifested, we're not ready to have it.
Mhm.
That's my litmus right there. If I can't do it with the spirit of love, I'm not ready to have it. And I won't. And I'll say, guys, this isn't about you. This is about me.
Mhm.
I'm dealing with some stuff I need to handle before we talk about this. So just know this isn't about you. And because it's true, it is about me. I haven't gotten my act together and found where Christ is in me to bring him forth in that conversation. So
Mm.
that to me is a driver on how I am aware of when I'm ready and when I'm not. Because I have a son who has tested that my entire life. So I have lots and lots of practice, but I'm so grateful for him because it has forced me to have to really look in the mirror at who
Mhm.
I am. And because I want to make sure I am the very best version of me when I am with him and with my daughter and her husband. So they make me grow, right? They really hold me accountable without even realizing they're holding me accountable. But I just find that sufficiency of Jesus show up and to speak truth to me in a loving way. I can hear him when I see it through the filter of love. And that's the
Mhm.
lesson that I need to keep modeling for them, because isn't that what we want with our children?
Yeah, that's really good. And I can think of moments where I've been really angry. Like, how dare you kind of angry?
Right.
And maybe when it's been like, you didn't tell me the truth or, whatever. And I have not responded well. I mean, shocker, that's not like newsflash, but I just have
Yep.
not responded well. And so to take some time, I think the hard thing is, what if it takes a really long time? Like, the conversation needs to be had because a moment is coming up and you need to address it before that moment,
Yep.
but you're still really struggling. Like, how do you hold that tension and approach it?
So, Alex, I think what's helpful for me and what I have done with other parents has been, what's your biggest fear? Because when we're angry, we're really scared. So the
Mhm.
real question is to get to the root of the fear. What's the fear that's driving the anger? Because if I'm angry, if I was going to say to you, if I'm angry, right, I'm going to put my fists up like visually like for a fight. But what's happening is my arms are protecting my heart. That's what anger does, protects our
Mhm.
heart. If I put my arms down and I really deal with what's going on in my heart, I'm scared. And if I can get to
Mhm.
that thing, how do I address the fear within me? What do I need to do about that? And when I can deal with the fear, then the other things start to fall into place that allow me to breathe, that allow me to grieve. Because here's another part that we don't talk about. We don't talk about the role that grief plays in parenting, especially in the adult years. Because when our children make choices that don't line up with the way we raise them, And we know there could be consequences to the choices that they're making. That breaks our heart. And what we do is we get mad and we try to control and we try to do all kinds of things to make them to change their mind. But what we struggle with is grieving what it really means to us. And when we don't grieve, we can't heal. So you got to be able to heal the hurt in order to heal the pain. The only way to do that is to acknowledge it, call it what it is to yourself with a friend, someone that you trust, and just say, this has hurt me to the core, and I need to grieve this. And I can tell you a quick story. We were at my son's best friend's wedding, and it came time for his best friend to do the mother-son dance. And his mom, who was a friend of mine, picked the song that I would have picked in a mother-son dance moment. And as they begin to dance and I'm watching, I begin to cry. And my daughter, my high EQ daughter, reaches over, grabs my hand. She knows why I'm crying. My son's back is to me and he has no clue I'm crying. And I was really grateful he didn't know. And as I'm crying, I realized that's never going to be me. Taylor had always dated women from other countries. The idea of having an American wedding was probably not going to be something that was going to happen. Having been a daughter and a wife of a minister, I'd probably attended and helped direct over 500 weddings. And every time there was a wedding, I would always have a vision of what my children's weddings would look like. And in that moment, I knew my moment would never happen that way. And I was grieving that day. Fast forward 4 years later, he's living in Singapore. He calls me and he says, Mom, I'm getting married in 60 days. Would you please come to the wedding? So I get on a plane and I'm the only family member there. And I enter a culture that I'd never been a part of, with a bride that I'd never met, with a family I didn't know, with traditions that I didn't understand. And I spent a week going through that whole process. And I embraced every moment and lived fully every opportunity. But I could do it because I had already done the grief work. I could do it because I didn't say, I wish it was this way. I could receive him and her and the family and their new traditions because I went with curiosity and I went with a heart to connect and a heart to serve and not with a broken dream. And so we have to grieve the broken dreams in order to fully embrace the current realities. And we don't talk about that. But I'm telling you, it is a gift when we do it. It makes a huge difference in how we connect with people.
You're amazing. I'm sitting here listening, going, a woman you'd never met in a country that was completely foreign. I mean, this is significant. Wow, Catherine, you're inspiring me. I would also say that is such a profound point. And I'm thinking through, so many of the things that happen come as a surprise to us. They take us off guard. And so our defenses just immediately rise because we're taken off guard. When my defenses are up and I'm unexpectedly dealing with something, I'm acting so weird right now and I don't know why. And I'm doing backflips, to try and deal with this situation. But in doing so, I just look foolish. And so I think, to your point of pausing, allowing space to breathe, allowing me to show up the way that I want to show up, and just telling people, I need a little space for this. Can we just give ourselves permission to grow? I'm thinking of several situations right now that I would have done differently. And I can really beat myself up for that. Or I can just say, okay, permission to grow. You know what? You didn't handle that well. Let's learn from that and let's do it differently next time.
We have to show mercy and grace to ourselves because this is hard. We've been doing something a certain way for 18 to 20 years. And now all of a sudden on a dime, we have to be completely different. That is not easy behavior change. I'm telling you, I mean, as a therapist, that's what people come to a therapist for, right? Or a coach, is to change behavior and practice and create new habits. Well, guess what? That's really hard when your heart's involved, right? It's really hard to do. And so we need to show mercy and say, look, this is going to take me some time. And, we tell our kids, I'm working on this. And I need some grace, and just know I'm working on it because I want to be the best version that you need. And sometimes I'm doing it better than others, but I'm working on giving me some grace too. So yes, we need, and that's why we need to talk about this. That's why this topic is so important, so we can support each other and not be judging each other, because, except by the grace of God go any of us at any given moment. And we do not know what we would do in any particular situation. We don't. So we need to be really careful that we are able to show grace to ourselves and grace to others when we're seeing people who are hurting and their situation is out of control, because life's hard. And today's generation is facing a lot of hard things, and they're not equipped a lot of times to know how to do it. We're all learning, I think, is the most important thing. And we all need to be loving and kind while we're learning.
Okay, well, switching gears a little bit. I was walking with a friend recently, and I was laughing so hard. She was telling me how frustrated she was with her young adults because she could do nothing right. I feel like young adulthood can be a time where they're looking at their childhood and being critical of it. So they're coming with these things. Here you have literally spent your entire life. This mom was telling me, I've spent my entire life bending over backwards. My whole life has been given, and this is what I get. I get annoyance, irritation. They're mad about this in their childhood. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so hard. So can you speak to that a little bit for the moms who just feel like, what's going on?
Well, first of all, remember, they don't know anything other than us. So therefore, they don't know what we've given. They don't see us as giving. They just see us as moms. So it'll be in their 30s before they start to really appreciate what we've actually done for them and with them. But here's how I would handle it. I would say, can we talk? I would actually take them to dinner if I could and say, can we just talk? How have I hurt you? And they're going to go, what are you talking about? And just say, the last 10 times we've been together, you have let me know that I have mucked up something in your world. And that tells me you've been angry, but what it really tells me is that somehow or another, I really hurt you. And I don't know exactly what that is that has caused all this, but I really do want to know, because whatever that is, I want to apologize, and I want to figure out, how do I restore this relationship? Because I can't think of a time my heart was ever to intentionally hurt you, but clearly I have, because you have reminded me many times of something I'm not doing well. And that just tells me you've been hurt. So can we talk about that? And you know what? They will melt, because 1, we're not defensive. 2, we're seeking to restore. 3, we're owning our stuff. 4, we've come at them with the right spirit and the right heart. And 5, we've given them an invitation to be honest and safe in that honesty. It typically works. It typically works. It's just when we're getting beat up, we want to kind of like, what's wrong with you? Ungrateful person. I mean, that's our natural reaction, right? But I think we have to always step back and go, what's really going on here? I think that's the question as parents of adult children. It's probably never what it appears to be on the surface. There's usually a whole lot more to that story. We've just not been accustomed to taking the time to step back, to go deeper, to figure out what the story really is. And I think we have to. I think we have to get ready to have some hard conversations. And again, we can't be defensive. We need to really listen. We could still think we made the right decision, but something that hurt them, we still need to understand what was the part that hurt them. And most of the time we are not aware. Again, we're not aware of how it came across or what it was like, or, again, good intentions, but it could have backfired, and we may have no idea the consequences of something that we did. So,
I talk a lot about intention and impact. That intention is not always the same as impact. And so we have to acknowledge that, sure, maybe that wasn't our intention, but the impact of it was still that. And we have to own that.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think they know us. It's just sometimes we can get out of control, right? Sometimes we'll talk more than we should. We'll share more than we should have shared. We will overstep boundaries and with good intentions. And I can think back to an event with my mother did when I was 18. And I was getting ready to go meet my in-laws for the first time. They weren't my in-laws at the moment, but this is the first time I was going to be meeting the parents of the young man that I was dating. And on the phone, her mom had called to say I was welcome to come. And she says, well, make sure she behaves herself. I looked at my mom and said, you need to look me in the eye right now and tell me, when has there ever been a time I have not ever behaved myself with another human being outside this house? And it caught her off guard because she just said it as wanting to be sure, you know what I mean? She just said it. But what she had no idea is what she did is she undermined me with my future in-laws. That would stay with me the rest of my life. And I had to deal with that forever because they never forgot she said that.
Wow.
So I think that's a fear that some moms have in having these hard conversations, or even in those moments of response where we're not prepared, where we're taken by surprise, that we are going to say something or do something that is held onto for years. So we can try to do the repair work, and yet there's still that fear that something's going to stick around.
Right.
How do we manage living and operating and being in relationship and saying things without that fear? I mean, sometimes my kids will be like, Mom, they try to put me on the spot. And I'm now at the point where I'm like, you know what? I've had too many things held against me because I said it once without really thinking it through. I am not committing on this issue or this topic. But that's in a moment of like clarity. But sometimes I just do, and it could hurt feelings, or they go back to it as something that I hold as this dear core belief. And it was just an off comment like that.
Well, and so one of the questions I ask in those moments would be, what do you need to do to heal from this moment? Because I've apologized. I've taken responsibility. I've done all I know to do. And it seems that it's still an issue with you. What do I need to do for us to have closure? So this isn't, because I know of nothing else to do. And sometimes just having that type of a question lets them see this isn't your issue. This is theirs. And what is their fear? Because here's the fear. What was the fear? For me, the fear was, and my mom didn't know my future in-laws. My mom would not have held a grudge, but she doesn't know that other people may have held a grudge, right? And that I would end up living with it. Now, I never mentioned it to my mother again. Once I had my peace with that, I went on and never had it again. But I had to live with it. And sometimes I would have to go back and say to God, you know, that scab got torn off again. That was hard. And I'd have to just tell God about it. You know, I would just have to go back and say, I don't know what to do about this. And with my own children, I have to circle back around and say, we just went through a rough patch. So is there anything left that we need to talk about to make sure that we don't keep reliving the issue? Right. And
that's good.
They can be really defining moments, but they can also be bonding moments where we went through this really hard season and look at us, look at how we got through this. And it just kind of like gives you cement on which you're building the relationship that just says, there's nothing we can't get through now. But when you're in the early years, there's a lot of learning. We got to remember, developmentally, the brain is still forming until the mid-20s. So, and they're still trying to figure out who they are, and they're trying to separate from us and become their own people. So it's more volatile in the 20s. And as they start to settle in their own skin by 30, I think you really start to see who they really are. But I think the 20s is a time of exploration and figuring out, what do I believe and what do I think, and start to see us for being people and not just being a mom or just a dad. And I think that's maturity. You know, that just takes some time.
Yeah, this is such good wisdom. Catherine, I'm just loving everything you're saying. Okay, I do want to get to this. You posted an unpopular opinion on Instagram, basically saying that when it comes to talking to your adult son, there's no confidentiality, meaning they are going to talk to their spouse about it or their significant other. So, can you speak to that and what you meant by that?
We as moms think we can, quote, pick up where we left off when they were 15 at our house and say, why are you dating that girl? And think that's not going to have a ripple. We're crazy. We've lost our minds because they're going to go tell them everything that we said. And they're not going to put it in context. So we won't even get the benefit of context. They're just going to get the worst part of it. Well, my mom said this about you. Well, how well is that going to go over? And God forbid they marry that person. Well, now that girl will never forget what her future mother-in-law said about her. She'll never forget it. She may try to forgive it, but it will always linger in her mind that her mother-in-law doesn't trust her, respect her, or believe in her because she said those things to her son. And the son's clueless. He's just clueless. He's just saying, hey, my mom said this, and probably had no idea the whiplash that would come and the long-term implications of that. But it's a fact. You just have to be incredibly careful. I find that daughters may say something to their future husbands, but 50-50, I have found 50% won't.
50-50.
Yeah.
That's funny. So you don't
They'll,
think it is the same with daughters?
no, I don't. I think because I think females think emotionally about relationships differently than males do. At least that's been my observation and my experience in therapy and working with parents and children. Because I've been doing parenting for 40 years. I mean, the whole parenting issue has been something that's been near and dear to my heart since I became a parent. And so I did therapy and parenting classes and parenting curriculum. And I've just watched and I just see there are some key differences. And girls will share with their husbands things that were said by parents, but the healthier the girl, the wiser she is on how she says what was said.
Mm-hmm.
And if she's got really good EQ, she's going to be aware that she's got to be really careful not to repeat when it was said with concern in a manner that either that partner, that spouse, or that fiance could really take it to heart and feel very insecure about it. I mean, I've dealt with men in therapy who were still trying to get the approval of their father-in-laws. They've been married 30 years.
Mm.
So, those core needs don't get met.
Yeah, it's really good and such a complicated dynamic. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Okay, I would just say, what is your last nugget of wisdom to give to parents who are in this season?
Expectations are the death knell of relationships with adult children.
Mm.
We have them. We have a lot of them. We started them the minute we found out we were going to have a baby. And they build over time, and our children pick up on it while they're in our homes, what those expectations are. It could have to do with finances. It could have to do with relationships. It could have to do with sports. It could have to do with holidays, 100 different topics. But those children that we've raised know very clearly what our expectations are of ourselves and other people and them. And this is where the secrecy begins. My daughter had a friend who came to visit, and he said, Mrs. Hickem, did you know that Tiffany is the only friend that I have who is the same in front of her parents as she is behind their back? And I said, no, I didn't know that. I said, well, what about you? He said, oh, no, I'm totally different. And I said, well, what is that about? And he said, when my mom and dad have expectations of me, and when I don't meet those expectations, my mom cries and my dad gets mad. So I've just learned that when I'm with them, I become who they want me to be. And when I walk out their door, I go back to being who I really am. That was a gut punch to me. And it made me profoundly sad. Because when our children think they have to be something different in order for us to love them and accept them, then we got a problem. And that's not okay. And to me, it's not the heart of God, because the way the Father, the Son, and the Spirit love me is they love me completely. exactly who I am. In my best of times, they love me the same way as when I'm in my worst of times. My worst and my best do not change the way they love me. And if I am to be a reflection of him to them, I have to really get honest about what my expectations are, and are they getting in the way of my kids being real with me? And this is why I bring up that whole thought of grief. You know, when we have expectations and they don't get met, if we don't grieve them, we beat them with the expectations. And
Ooh,
I
it's
just
good.
think we have to really get really clear on who we want to be with our adult children and really love them well.
Mm. Thank you,
Thank you.
Catherine. This has been such a great interview. Really
Mhm.
appreciate the work that you're doing in the world.
Well,
We
thank you
need
so
it.
much.
We need it.
We all need it. We all need each other to support each other, because this is a journey that no one prepared us for. So
Mm.
thank y'all so much.